Hello, welcome to episode 108 of Partners in Crime. Heard you singing along there, Bob.
Oh, was I saying? That was probably just after you told me to be quiet.
Probably was, yes.
Yeah, isn't it
Microphone
funny?
clearly not as muted as I thought there.
Always been contrary. Always contrary.
Well, we had a week off.
We did.
We almost had two because we've had some technical difficulties recording this morning already. But we have had a little pre-show meeting and we've looked ahead at the weather forecast for next week and it's looking bright. So what we'll probably do is actually be back together for the first time in
Good
a
grief.
long time, 2 or 3 months now, and hopefully set up the studio in the garden and stay our socially distant 2 meters apart the whole way to make sure we are in compliance with the law. And with any luck, we'll be able to do it. I mean, there'll also be technical difficulties, but there'll just be different ones, I suppose.
Yeah, there will be. It'll be interesting to see whether you've grown over this time. I mean, I know
I've grown all right. I've been sitting here eating and drinking for 2 months.
I know you've had a birthday, so many happy returns.
Thank you very much. It was,
it'll be a few days ago now, won't it? But
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday. You had a splendid time, did you? Did you have a nice time?
I did, yeah. I mean, it's limited in terms of what we could actually do. We normally have a big birthday barbecue, as you know.
Tell me about it. Of course I do.
But my son James, he's 3.5. He decided that we would have a party at home with just him and mummy and daddy, and he made party hats for us yesterday morning, which was fun. Yes. If you are a Patreon subscriber, I'm about to pop it on my head now, my party hats. You'll be able to see.
Oh, look at that.
It is a nice paper hat that says daddy with a handprint. He's drawn.
Do you know, there is no better advertisement for our regular listeners. There's no better advertisement to become a Patreon member, because then you would have seen what I've just seen and other Patreon members, and I have to say that visage is priceless.
Well, so there's a picture he drew of me. I'll pop that to the camera there. Very little hair on the head, nice beard, and a massive belly. So
the boy's a genius, I tell you. He's a genius.
Yeah. I'm starting to like him a little less now.
He's caught a likeness, a definite likeness.
Certainly.
There we are. Yes. Well, many happy returns.
Thank you. I had a lovely day. Got some lovely presents, some books. I'll talk about one of them later because I've already most of the way through it and ready to recommend it.
Yeah.
Some pens and inks, of course, and also a little something for sitting here while I'm writing, while I'm doing Partners in Crime. A little present that my wife got me, which is a massage cushion, which is lovely. And I'm gonna switch it on. Let's see if you can hear it. Yeah.
I can hear a ooh.
That's it.
But are you sure that's not you? I've heard you make that sound on a few occasions.
Well, if you're watching the video, you can see that it's kind of nudging me around.
I can't quite see. Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, it works on both cheeks.
It's not too noisy. It makes your back feel a lot better, but unfortunately, it does make you a bit seasick. It'll properly throw you around.
Yeah. Have you got a bucket standing by just in case?
I haven't. No.
Oh. Well, what a lovely present. So it's your lower back and your upper buttock that it covers. Is that the basic?
Well, this is a family-friendly podcast, Bob.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the word buttock.
Not anymore.
so long as you don't have to look at them particularly. That's really, really pleasant. What an unusual and may I say, thoughtful present from Joe.
Yes. Lots of lovely presents, and I spent the day in the garden reading with coffee, and then progressively not coffee as the day went on. And one of the books I enjoyed a lot, which I haven't got the cover ready for, I will get them ready for my other ones I want to talk about, was, I think I mentioned it on the programme recently, I think it came up in a news article, was a book on Scandinavian noir by Wendy Lesser.
Yes, you did mention that, yes.
Guide to the genre. Very much enjoying it, actually. I'm not huge on Scandi noir. I do read it, have read it. I wouldn't consider myself an expert on it by any stretch, but learning a lot, and it's kind of tied into the society of Scandinavia, the politics there, the connections between books and the way they treat characters and treat the crimes. It's really, really interesting. So I can heartily recommend that. Also been enjoying this month's book of the month. Partners in Crime book of the month, which is Kill for Love by Malcolm Richards, which is a fantastic read. Came out, I think, on the 1st of June. And if you want to get that for free, then that's available free for all of our Patreon members. Log into your Patreon dashboard if you're already a patron, or if you're not, then I think it's patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast to sign up. Links also in the show notes. And hello and welcome to two new patrons who've joined us in the past week, to Sheila Howes and Cheryl Hill. Welcome to the gang, ladies.
Hello, Sheila. Hello, Cheryl. Lovely. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you as a patron, and apologies for you're going to be careful what you pay for in this life. Having to look at me say this, but lovely to have you on board, and thanks for viewing.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a few extra little bits for our patrons as well. Like I say, we're back together next week, hopefully, and as long as the weather remains nice. I have got plans. If not, they do involve gazebos. And hopefully we can continue to get back to normal, keep putting some more stuff in the Patreon group there. And yes, hopefully we can start to get back to how we were,
So you're offering placebos, are you, to our patron members?
Gazebos, but yes,
gazebos.
I could look into placebos as well, I suppose. I'm not quite sure how they'll help us, but maybe if my seasickness after using my massage cushion, who knows?
Well, I'm quite envious of your massage. I'm not envious of the seasickness, and so I'll be looking for you to suddenly lose your tan quickly and dive to one side, because I'll know that's your Buttock Stimulator. But
well, with the weather, it'll be fading between now and Sunday. That's for sure.
I know this is a problem. This is a big problem. Right. Well, listen. This week is obviously, and the last week has been overtaken by tragic news in the States, and everyone is following the Black Lives Matter campaigns, and sending their thoughts to all those who are grieving in Minneapolis, etc. And it got us thinking. Not for the first time. We've covered this topic many times enough, because it's a very important one, and that is about black writers and writers of colour in the publishing world. Now, in particular, crime writers. I mean, two of our friends of the show, the wonderful Drita Say Mitchell and Mr. Vasim Khan, have very successful best-selling crime novelists, and they have their stories to tell, which they have already done for Partners in Crime in their terrific interviews for us. But I've been looking through the bookseller and various other things, and there's some very interesting articles. One of them headed "Black Lives Matter in the Book Industry" by Farida Abike Limida. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, Farida. But this article says, despite the amazing work of some in the book industry over the last few years, many black authors can still recall times when their stories have not been supported or welcomed, when they've been told to turn their rom-com into a tragedy or twist their space opera into a police brutality metaphor. When the industry doesn't publish a vast range of black literature anyway on all topics and genres, without trumpeting it as a diversity project, it is deeply problematic and goes against the very purpose of the BLM movement. I myself was worried when querying my book and then going out on submission to publishers that it would not sell. But I was surprised to find that there were so many people in the industry that wanted to see my book do well and get it to the hands of the kids that need it. One of those people being my editor, Becky, and my publisher, Osborne, who, from the moment I started working with them, expressed that I had their full support, from plans to send out early copies to black reviewers to the cover being one that would make black kids feel like they matter. We are not yet where we need to be in publishing, but there has been progress, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes, from booksellers to editors to librarians, who wish for this change too. So, I mean, I think that's quite interesting. The Black Lives Matter movement should make publishers rethink the stories they purchase and promote, questioning not just the volume, but the nature of those stories. It should remind people not to be satisfied with such an unequal and unjust system, and to fight for diversity in the workplace at all levels, from senior management to internships, ensuring their workforce is reflective of the world we live in. Schools should be encouraged by the book industry to study more than just classics written by old dead white people, allowing children to see themselves reflected in the books they have to study for most of their formative years. Ultimately, I hope the impact of this on the industry is that people realise that our problems did not start in 2016 or 2012. They started a long time ago and require drastic, continued, unflagging efforts towards change if we are going to see significant improvements. So I think that's a very finely written article there, which I think covers what an awful lot of us are thinking is necessary in the publishing industry. I mean, you hear stories. Matt Haig and various other people, white authors, have actually shown exactly how much they've earned from their books over recent years, to actually have full transparency. And there's been uproar because an awful lot of well-known best-selling BAME writers of colour have noticed that there is a great disparity, very little parity in what they receive as well. So this is obviously a very important time in the publishing industry to actually get that correct. So there we are. We will be recommending our favourites from Vaseline and Dreda a little later on, but that's our thoughts for now on the events of the last week as they impact on our particular small part of the world, the publishing world. And it is interesting to see also how few writers of colour there are working in crime fiction. Many more in the States, but far fewer in this country. And I hope and pray that that will begin to change after these events. And it is such a shame that if they do, it takes these events to promote that sort of, as the article has just said, Faraday has just said quite clearly, it takes that to make these changes possible. Anyway, there we go. Over to you.
Well, on a different note, we've got an interview in today's episode with Graham Bartlett, who has been on the show before, but he's here to talk about something very different indeed. He's been working as an advisor on a new TV crime drama, which is out now. He's going to tell us a little bit about working behind the scenes on that, what it was like ensuring they got their police procedure, I should say, right, and the difference between working with authors and working on TV, which is very interesting. It's going to be a bit of a longer episode today. That's already the case. So I'm going to dive quickly into some news before we get onto that interview. Bookriot.com carried an article this week about the psychological thriller and domestic suspense and whether it's here to stay, where it all came from. They say when Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl hit shelves in 2012, it became a literary phenomenon. It sat atop the New York Times bestseller list for 8 weeks, sold 2 million copies in its first year, and was adapted into a movie 2 years after that. So how has it changed the genre in the years since its publication? Meg Gardner, the author and president of the Mystery Writers of America, is quoted quite a lot about the saying the domestic suspense novel really delves into what's going on in the interior lives of ordinary people, and the idea that we can never really know what lurks behind the happy, supposedly normal facade. Apparently, though, domestic suspense novels have been around much longer. Apparently, in the 40s and 50s, there was a spate of these novels, for want of a better word. Better word being spate, of course, not novels, because they clearly are.
Yes. Double Indemnity was originally a book.
Yeah,
All those wonderful film noirs were books, and again, we've covered those in previous episodes. So yes, these things come round again.
Yeah, and even things like Dial M for Murder, that was that could be even considered to be a domestic noir. Greg Herron, the author and executive vice president of the Mystery Writers of America, was talking about. He says that the appeal of domestic suspense is essentially what happens when the person you married turns out to be a sociopath. It talks about the trend in titles, things like girl, woman, mother, wife, sister, that tend to appear in a lot of the titles. And the major characteristic of the novels being the source of the conflict, which is interpersonal relationships rather than a crime or trying to catch a killer. It's all about, when your family life, I guess, falls apart, you question things that the perfect life, the happy life you have suddenly turns on its head. And they close in saying that they think the demand for domestic thrillers is here to stay, which I personally have to agree with because of what we just said. It taps into exactly what it is to be human. We all have interpersonal relationships. We all have things that go wrong. We can all relate to domestic suspense and to psychological thrillers. It's relatable for everyone. It's not something that changes or I think goes out of fashion.
No, indeed. I mean, that's very good to hear. Apart from the fact that I don't write them. So...
Well, I
Not
do,
at the moment.
and I'm
you
probably
never
gonna,
know. I might have.
I'm going to bump the next one further up the publication list, I think, and get that out sooner if they're still doing well. Craig Robertson, the author, wrote in the Guardian this week his top 10 Scottish crime novels. He's celebrating the release of his new book, Watch Him Die, which, if you're listening to this on Friday, day of release, came out yesterday, the 11th of June. He says he's not a big fan of tartan noir as a label for Scottish crime fiction. His new book, Watch Him Die, is half set in Glasgow and half in Los Angeles. So he says its shortbread credentials are hanging by a thread, which is a lovely turn of phrase. He is, of course, also the director of Bloody
Haggis
Scotland.
Noir.
Yes, Haggis Noir. He's the director of the Bloody Scotland Crime Writing Festival, and he also runs Butte Noir. So he chose his 10 novels, which, of course, very, very difficult. He chose, I'll run through them quickly, Laid Law by William McIlvenney, The Cutting Room by Louise Welsh, The Jump by Doug Johnston, The Long Drop by Denise Mina, which I know we talked about on the show before. He did pick an Ian Rankin book. He went for Hide and Seek. He says he loved that Rebus cared who killed an Edinburgh junkie when no one else did, establishing him as the seeker of justice in the face of establishment opposition. His rest of his list was Quite Ugly One Morning by Chris Brookmeyer, an early one of his. A Place of Execution by Val McDermid. Two-Way Split by Alan Guthrie. Worst Case Scenario by Helen Fitzgerald. And Cold Granite by Stuart McBride. And Craig Robertson's new one, Watch Him Die, is out now.
Right. Well, there we are. That's one to be. And how would I go about getting that wonderful new book on the 11th?
Well, I highly recommend that you get it from Kobo, who, of course, are very kindly the sponsors of this podcast. If you've not bought a book from Kobo before, then you can do. You can get 90% off by using the promo code CRIME at the checkout. And no, you don't need an e-reader to do it. You can use the free Kobo app for your mobile or your tablet. Both the e-readers are very, very good and far superior to others. If you're an existing Kobo customer, then use the link in the show notes to find eligible books where you can claim 40% off using the promo code PARTNERS. I know, for life. How wonderful is that?
Life. Oh, it makes life worth living. Yes, well, fantastic. So that's where good.
I'll say also
I'll do all that.
Is our friend Mr. Graham Bartlett. I spoke to him,
Mr. Bartlett, sir.
Yes,
the expert, as I like to, as I call him. I mean, apart from being one of the nicest men you could meet, he's also absolutely brilliant, and of course talks from decades of experience as a top police officer in the UK police force. I can't wait to see that interview because I'll be seeing it for the first time myself.
Well, you don't have to because we're going to watch it now. Now, Graham, you've appeared on Partners in Crime before, I think just over 2 years ago, episode 18 or 19, I think.
Well, it was. Yeah, it was. Seems like yesterday.
It does, doesn't it? And now, nearly 100 episodes on, you're back. For those of you who don't know you, you're a former, let me get this right, Detective Chief Superintendent and City Commander of Brighton and Hove
Never
Police.
at that level, but Chief Superintendent.
Oh, right, okay. Well, there we go. That's
every other level. Yeah, sorry, Vicky.
I'll get the mistakes in early. That's the best thing to do. But whichever rank it was, you were a high-ranking police officer in a city in Brighton, which, for those who aren't from the UK and aren't familiar with it, is a city which has historically needed some pretty heavy policing, isn't it? And some interesting policing.
Yeah, I'd say imaginative policing sometimes. I mean, it sometimes, well, for a lot of the early part of the millennium, it was the drugs death capital of the UK. It's got a reputation around violent crime and around being a party city. And throughout over the years, the policing's had to adapt to that and to be consistent with with what the city is. I mean, it's a great city. It's not as dangerous as people would have you believe, but that takes a lot of work in terms of being able to isolate the kinds of crimes that affect people most and being able to deal with them while allowing other people to enjoy the sun, sea and parties.
Yeah, and it's a city which has obviously lent itself to lots of books. Brighton Rock, perhaps most famously with Graham Greene, and now Peter James, who writes his Roy Grace series set in the city. And since you've retired, been working as an advisor to a lot of crime authors, including Peter James, and I've got here some bloke called Adam Croft as well. You've been helping with the procedure there.
Yeah.
Never heard of him. So, I mean, just for you, so you basically help writers get their policing facts right, don't you, as much as is possible?
Yes, I do. I work with authors and TV writers because obviously policing is a profession and it has a way of doing things, and police officers have a certain kind of style about them. And what I like to do is help authors that wouldn't know what those things are necessarily, to just kind of infuse their stories and their characters with that authenticity without taking away the pace and drama of the story, but being able to really kind of inject that authenticity into their story so that people believe the procedure, believe the policing, and believe the characters. And
obviously you've been doing that for a while now with books, but you're here today to talk about some work you've been doing on a new TV series which has started airing in the last week or two. It's called We Hunt Together, isn't it? Which is on Alibi in the UK and hopefully syndicated worldwide, we hope. What was your work on there? How is that different from kind of working with authors? I guess there were lots of similarities in terms of trying to get the procedure right, but it's very different, isn't it? Working on books and working on TV.
It is. I mean, We Hunt Together is made by BBC Studios for Alibi TV, which is part of UK TV network. Yeah, I mean, my initial role was as a script advisor. So I went into it thinking that it would be the same as working with an author. That I worked with the writer, who's a brilliant writer called Gabby Hull, and we kind of we sent scripts backwards and forwards. The executive producer was involved in terms of just kind of moderating some of the storylines, but it was a very, very kind of simple relationship at that point, and I was advising about storyline and about character, terminology, that sort of thing. And then in came the script editor and the directors and producers and the network itself. And I soon realised actually that scripts aren't developed in the same way as as you write a novel. What you write in a novel is down to you really, and your editor in certain circumstances. But actually, there's a whole group of people that have got an interest in writing a script, and my role was really just to kind of be part of that team. But the one-to-one relationship wasn't there. But it was a great experience. I mean, what it really taught me was that TV people are absolutely committed to getting things right. I mean, I've been watching the series and through my fingers really initially thinking, have they done this right? Have they done that right? And on Thursday night last week, there was a particular storyline that I was very worried about. We spent a lot of time working on it. Oh, they absolutely nailed it. It was amazing. And the actors were, just the dynamic with the actors, it just feels right. And I'm just so proud that they listened to my advice, but also didn't overdo it in terms of making it into a kind of I Spy, fly on the wall documentary on policing.
Yeah. I think it's probably difficult with TV, isn't it? And it does need to be approached in a different way because, there are lots of people involved. Some people might say too many cooks when it comes to TV. Yeah. But I think if it's approached in the right way, and roles are clearly defined, I guess nobody's going to argue with you on the procedural side of things. But it is. I guess. I mean, my TV involvement has been minimal, but I'm guessing it's. Is it as personal as working with an author? Do you kind of feel that your input is getting across in the same way? I mean, we've seen the results on TV. Like you say, it's brilliant and it's close and it's obvious that your hand has been strong there.
Yeah, I mean, the personal relationship is still there. It's just with more people. So I would have sort of many hours of conversation with Gabby, the writer. And similarly with the exec producers and the script editors, and sometimes, I mean, particularly Anne Pitchovich, the one of the executive producers, she would her questioning of me was she should have been a detective herself, because she really wanted to get really understand the detail, really understand what was possible and what wasn't possible. And in fact, what I've seen on the screen, I can actually see, I mean, there's a particular story, I won't spoil it because some people may not have seen it. There's a particular storyline where, I kind of came up with a solution. I didn't know I was going to come up with a solution in the conversation, but I said, what you could do is this. And there it is. It's, I knew it's going to be in there because I've seen the script, but, the way that they really want to get it right. So it's just a number of people. And I didn't feel at all that I was being ignored or that it was a kind of just a nod to say that they've got a police advisor. They really want to get it right, but also, of course, as you say, they're making TV. It's got to be fast moving, it's got to be dramatic, and sometimes policing isn't like that.
No, that's it. It's sometimes the story does have to win out, and I know myself, when you research things, it's not a case of getting all the details so that you can cram them all in and overload people, but if you know everything, you can choose what needs to be used and what doesn't. It's I guess having all that information. And I know from having worked with you myself over the years, the feedback I get from readers about how procedurally accurate the Night in Colby House books are. I've got ex-detectives, ex-police officers reading the books who enjoy those. And, that's obviously all thanks to the detail that you're able to put into them. I mean, from a TV point of view, what sort of things were they asking you to advise on? Was it, the procedure of of an investigation itself? Was it, kind of wording of things? What kind of details were they asking?
Yeah, I mean, everything really. I mean, it's not a spoiler to say, because quite often there is in TV drama. There's a police firearms scene in the story. So it's about really setting out for them how that would work and how that, and how it wouldn't work. It was about how they would get to a certain piece of evidence. It's about how officers would talk to one another, and particularly when they're differing ranks, but quite close personally. And, that could be quite nuanced at times, down to, a radio message. What does a radio message sound like? Or how would this officer text that officer? It was everything really, everything that was about the policing and about the progress of an investigation. They wanted to know the detail of, and as you say, I would always say to a writer, I'm going to tell you everything that would happen. I'm going to tell you how I think you can get from A to B in a procedurally authentic way. But please don't write every kind of dot in the process, because you're experienced enough to know this, but because you'll just turn your readers off, because it's not always that interesting. But if you know it, then you know how far you can veer from it, and you know what you can gloss over and what you need to attend to in detail.
You can work into the story what needs working in, I guess, can't you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody I know wants procedurally accurate and realistic crime. So hopefully we will all go and check that out. We Hunt Together
Mhm.
on Alibi, should be on various iPlayer type things as well, and hopefully
Yeah.
making its way around the world soon. You've also, for those who are interested, and I know we do have a lot of crime writers and people who are interested in crime writing, of course, listening to Two Partners in Crime. You also run a series of courses and masterclasses as well, don't you?
That's right. Yeah, I've just started working with a brilliant organisation called the Professional Writing Academy, who provide the kind of infrastructure for online training, online courses around writing. And obviously, at the moment, they've really come into their own because everything's having to be done online. So between us, we've developed a program called Crime Writing, Making It Real, which is going to be at the moment a 3-year series of one-day workshops. So we did a workshop at the end of May on a Saturday, all about surveillance and covert policing. So one day, completely interactive online. There were writing exercises, interviews with experts, video clips, feedback discussions. So we've had that. We've got another one coming up in the middle of July, on the 17th to the 19th of July, where we're going to start with a murder. But no one's actually going to get killed because my insurance doesn't cover that. Sorry about that. Unless you've got anyone that you particularly, I don't know if Bob's around, but
I was going to say, I've got a few ideas.
Yeah. So we're going to start on a Friday night with a murder, and we're going to take that murder right the way through the weekend in real time, but from a writer's perspective. So we'll be getting people to interpret the crime scene, to then start to work out how they would write that and how they would develop into their lines of inquiry, and then we'll introduce a protagonist, a lead police officer, and then a villain, and it all ends up with a writing exercise at the end where which shows how we've got from the crime scene to interviewing the suspect in it, but it's all about crime writing, but we're going to take it in real time. So we're going to I'll be saying, okay, we're 24 hours in now, this is what you'll expect, what do you think you're going to get, where you're going to go. So it's quite fast paced, but people want to really immerse themselves into what it's like to investigate a crime. Then please book on that, and details are on my website, policeadvisor.co.uk.
Excellent. We'll put all the details in the show notes there as well for how people can get signed up and enjoy those. I mean, what's next for you? What are you working on? Are you sitting back your feet up now? You're retired, I presume.
Yeah, my wife's. I've been retired 7 years. And my wife keeps asking me when it's going to start because no, I mean I've got a novel in with my agent at the moment, and hoping that's going to be picked up somewhere soon. But that's Would You Believe About Policing, and it's essentially about when the policing cuts become so bad, state-sponsored vigilantism starts to take over from policing, and what carnage results in that. So I've finished that as far as I can at the moment. Obviously there'll be edits, and I'm just starting on the second one as well. And I'm trying to develop these courses and providing day-to-day advice for authors such as yourself, and new authors as well. So people can come to me and with either storylines or full manuscripts or individual questions, and I'll give them the advice and guidance and inject that realism that we were talking about.
Excellent. Well, I hope that novel sees the light of day before it becomes less speculative fiction and
it was
more documentary.
Historical fiction soon, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Graham. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on Partners in Crime, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon. We'll try not to leave it another 2 years this time, though. Well, there we go. Good to hear from Graham again, wasn't it?
Always, always, always. Yes, thanks very much, Graham. That was absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I wasn't able to be there. That's this virus situation. Only one of us can do the interviews, and only one of us has the technical knowledge so to do. So it was over to the Michael Parkinson of Partners in Crime, Adam.
And only one of us is likely to keep it under 15 minutes as well, let's face it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a shame. And that's why I know you'll be going on to 50 minutes with me as you well. And very happily, Graham, I have to say. Very happily. But 50 minutes is a limit. Adam is notoriously what's a nice way of putting this?
Aware that people
Careful
don't
with
want to listen
time.
to us for hours. That might be it.
Yeah, well, you say that. My mother would disagree, I'm afraid to say. But there we are. Off you go. Carry
Off
on.
I
So have
go.
you got a book recommendation? I certainly have.
I have. I've got two recommendations that I wanted to flag up this week. Wonderful books. The first one is Brothers in Blood by Amma Anwar. I think we've talked about on the show before.
Yep.
I'll read the blurb because that's what we do. We don't do our own work.
We are
on this
blurb
podcast.
readers par excellence.
South or West London. After being released from prison, Zach Khan is lucky to land a dead-end job at a builder's yard. All he wants to do is keep his head down and put the past behind him. But when Zach is forced to search for his boss's runaway daughter, he quickly finds himself caught up in a deadly web of deception, murder, and revenge. With time running out and pressure mounting, can he find the missing girl before it's too late? And if he does, can he keep her and himself alive long enough to deal with the people who want them both dead? That's Brothers in Blood by Amma Anwar, which I read actually a little while ago, and very, very much enjoyed. So yeah, can highly recommend that one. The other one I wanted to mention, and I'm struggling, I must admit, to get the cover up on the screen. So apologies to people who are watching on Patreon. You might not have the cover for this one appearing. It's actually a new one which has come out. When was that? March, so fairly new. It's the new one from Jacob Ross, which is Black Rain Falling, which follows up from his very popular The Bone Readers, which came out a couple of years ago. Set on the Caribbean island of Camajo, with forensics expert Michael Digger Digson, who is in deep trouble. His fellow CID detective, Miss Stanislaus, kills a man in self-defense. Their superiors believe it was murder, and Digger is given just 6 weeks to prove his friend is innocent. While the authorities bear down on them, Digger and Miss Stanislaus investigate a shocking roadside murder, the first tremors of a storm of crime and corruption that will break over Camajo at any minute. I've not read it yet. I am going to do so this week. It's next on my list, but based on The Bone Readers, which I very much enjoyed, I'm expecting it to be wonderful. And I have now got the cover. There we go. Jacob Ross, Black Rain Falling.
Oh, worth waiting for.
Stunning cover there, isn't it?
Yeah, very good indeed. Oh, well, there we are. Fantastic. Well, I've got, we've already mentioned, of course, Dreda Say Mitchell, her wonderful series of books, Spare Room, Trapdoor, Blood Secrets, Blood Sister. I mean, a wonderful crime writer. All her books are available on Kobo, and if you haven't read them, please do.
And friend of the show as well.
Friend of the show, and she was
Episode
awarded an
2,
MBE. Yeah, absolutely. She was really there, early doors. And she was awarded an MBE in the 2020 New Year's Honours List. So we haven't had a chance to congratulate Dreda for that. So congratulations. And also we've mentioned, if you fancy a slightly cosier crime novel, but no less intriguing and fascinating, there is, of course, Vasim Khan and his Baby Ganesh Agency Investigations, the first of which, of course, is The Unexpected Inheritance of Inspector Jopra. Fantastic series of books by Vasim, absolute must-reads for me. My recommendation of the week is an American writer, S.A. Cosby, whose book Black Top Wasteland is out very soon. I'll read there it is. I'll read the blurb. It's a crime that history repeats itself. Beauregard Bug Montage, what a great name. Beauregard Bug Montage. Honest mechanic, loving husband, devoted parent. He's no longer the criminal he once was. The sharpest wheelman on the East Coast, infamous from the hills of North Carolina to the beaches of Florida. But when his respectable life begins to crumble, a shady associate comes calling with a clean, one-time job, a diamond heist promising a get-rich payout. Inexorably drawn to the driver's seat and haunted by the ghost of his outlaw father, Bug is yanked back into the savage world of bullets and betrayal. which soon endangers all he holds dear. Like Breaking Bad in a high-speed collision with Drive, this stunning novel holds up a cracked mirror to the woozy ideals of the American dream. A dazzling operatic story of a man pushed to his limits by poverty, race, and a scarred, self-destructive masculinity. Blacktop Wasteland is an urgent, timely, pitch-perfect jolt of American noir, says Dennis Lehane. The book will leave you breathless, but also desperate to know where Cosby will take us next. Laura Lippman. And who else? Yes, sensationally good. New, fresh, real, authentic, twisty, with characters and dilemmas that will break your heart. Lee Child. So great recommendations there from S.A. Cosby for S.A. Cosby's book Blacktop Wasteland. It's one that I am very much looking forward to. It's I love American crime thrillers, as you know, and I've not read Cosby before, so I'm getting that on Kobo. Blacktop
Excellent.
Wasteland.
That's been on my list for a couple of weeks, actually, since we covered that in the news, I think 2-3 episodes ago, something like that, with when Booklist magazine used the bottom half of that cover, or the background image of that cover, with a pretty insensitive and badly placed headline, which they had to apologise for. So that's what actually...
was that one?
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? That's what makes you aware of a writer. When it shouldn't be that there has to be somebody making racially insensitive mistakes that makes you aware of an extraordinarily talented writer. But either way, we're now aware of him, and yes, that's very much been very much near the top of my list, and is one I'm going to read over the next few weeks as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that one.
Well,
hopefully we can
see if I can't beat you to it.
Well, you probably will, to be honest. But I'm hoping we can give that a glowing review on Partners in Crime. We are well over time compared to normal. We're getting on for 3/4 of an hour, almost back into vintage Partners in Crime territory.
Good grief.
But we got a lot more to cover. As you can see, I've got all of these things here I want to talk about and bring up. We're going to have to save that for a bumper issue of Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which we are going to record now and will be available in our Patreon dashboard. If you're not a member, then please do check out the link in the show notes, and you can go and watch that. Essentially, you get 2 episodes of Partners in Crime each week. We do another after show for all the stuff that we didn't get round to, which is nice.
Well, this is nice. We aim to be nice.
We do. We try.
Don't always pull it off, but anyway. So anyway, it's very good. So you got those covers up. I was wondering whether the problem you were having getting downloading those covers was. Are you sure that your bottom rubber massager isn't interfering with the Wi-Fi frequency?
It might be. Shall I put it on again and see?
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's definitely a Twilight Zone moment.
It is, isn't it? Oh, I'm getting a little too relaxed. We might have to leave it there.
You don't look relaxed to me. You look as if you're getting quite excited. That's a very good place to leave.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.